Hello and welcome to what is the Gooner Talk today as we embark upon the final away trip of the season, the final time that we will see the yellow kit in all of its brilliant glory. That yellow kit will be long forgotten by some, but it will be remembered by many. I'm hoping in a very victorious way because this is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show, joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It's incredibly appreciated and incredibly humbling indeed to see so many of you always joining us. And thank you to those that listen, of course, on catch up or watch on catch up, of course, on YouTube if you happen to miss the live showing of the channel. Good morning to those joining us in the chat box, though. James, Paul, Shiv, Stephen, Damien, Pikahu, Lee, Barry, other Barry, Arasilki, Kaiser, Rowan, Morgie, Jose, Luke Shaw joins us, our resident Man United fan, who's never really too optimistic about their chances, but he's going for an 8-0 clean sheet. Season over for Arsenal today. So let's see if indeed Luke Shaw isn't going to be available from the sounds of things, to be fair, team news-wise. Matt G, Stevie, Vivian, Brad, Gavin, Owen. I hope that you've had a fantastic stag do. I'm so sorry that I couldn't be there with you for it, but I hope that it's been a great one and that you're not feeling too rough this morning, Owen. I'll see you at your wedding very soon indeed. Strong, Freddie, Alfie, Jacob, Cross Jonky, Martins, Sir Nicholas, Chris, thank you to you all so much, as always, for joining me and appreciate your time as well. Let's jump, though, to today's stories. After I've told you, of course, to drop a like on the video, please do help us on our way to hitting our target of 1K every day. Now I think about it, I think I checked yesterday's show. Oh, goodness me. Right, we've got a mission, people, because yesterday's show, 984 likes. We've got 16 of you that have forgotten you've got a job this morning. You need to hop over to yesterday's show quickly. By the end of this stream, this needs to be sorted out. 16 more likes are needed on yesterday's show. I know the weekend shows, especially when there was an early kickoff yesterday and there's a relatively early kickoff today. Please do help us out by hitting that like button. We want to try and keep this challenge going. You want to see Arsenal keep their title challenge going. So show that commitment to keep this challenge going as long as we feasibly can. We give ourselves 24 hours as a buffer, as always, to save the challenge. So we've got 20 minutes to try it, or half an hour to try and save it. Martin says, Tom, am I one of them? You potentially are, Martins. So you get over to yesterday's show. Make sure you like it. And make sure you like on this one as well. Right. Let's jump to today's stories, though. We start with Arsenal losing late in their under-21s playoff against Chelsea. Of course, Arsenal progressed through to the next stage of the competition with a pretty comfortable win previously. But at Boreham Wood, they have been knocked out of the PL2 playoffs by, obviously, a very talented young Chelsea side. Chelsea haven't had much to shout about all season, but their youth team continues to be a bastion of hope, except they don't seem to use too many of them. The talents, of course, they use them often in the loan market. But maybe they'll start to use more of them, considering the signings they've made haven't been particularly great or done business. Maybe their youngsters will. Of course, one of them being Amari Hutchinson, who spent the season on loan at Ipswich and got promoted to the Premier League with Ipswich. He will return to Chelsea, and who knows? We'll see if he gets an opportunity as well. But yes, Arsenal's under 21, not coming through victorious against Chelsea, except our under 18s did in one of the final Premier League under 18 games of the season. Obi-Martin scored another hat-trick. Yes, he is quite stunning. Two of them were penalties, in fairness. One of them was a brilliant header, though. Certainly worth checking out the highlights if you can find them on social media. But Obi-Martin scoring in a 5-2 win. Max Doman also getting a goal. The 14-year-old Max Doman midfielder, very talented as well, getting a goal in this game. Also, Brilliant stuff from the under-18s. Loads of talent going to be moving into that under-21s, you'd think, next season. Will Max Doman at 14 years of age be one of them? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Let's round up yesterday's Premier League results. Of course, the big one was the frustrating one. Manchester City 4, Fulham 0. I mean, I think they had one shot, Fulham, all game. At this stage of the season, Man City are just quite simply relentless. And yeah, it's not looking likely, people. I'm going to be very frank and very honest with you. I remain optimistic. I remain in hope. And Arsenal, of course, have got to do the business today. If we win against Manchester United, we take the game to the final day of the season. But it's not looking likely. I didn't watch the game. I was out. I didn't even. I think it was about 12:50, so 20 minutes after kickoff, and I was like, oh. Game's kicked off. I'll have a quick... Oh, it's 1-0 City. I didn't check it again until it was full time because it's just no point. It's just not worth it, is it? It's not worth, your mental health or investing too much into that. I don't think I'll watch the Spurs game in midweek. I'm not expecting too much of that, but more on that shortly. Bournemouth lost 2-1 at home to Brentford. Their season's kind of coming to a little bit of a sad end. Obviously, that's 2 defeats in a row. Everton beating Sheffield United. Newcastle drawing with Brighton, which was a frustrating result because if Newcastle had have won, it would have closed the gap to Spurs to 4 points. They're now going to need a lot to go their way. It would have put more pressure on Spurs, obviously, as well. Chelsea, though, did keep the pressure up on Spurs somewhat. They moved up to 57 points as well with 2 games remaining, beating Nottingham Forest 3-2. However, because Luton lost 3-1 away to West Ham United, they are now all but down. They would need a huge goal difference swing in the final game of the season between Forest and Luton for Forest to go down. So it seems, despite all of the drama, all the controversy, all the refereeing complaining, Nottingham Forest seem that they will be staying up. As someone that lived there for 3 years, I've always had my liking and soft spot for Forest, so I am glad that they are staying up. But I'm gutted that Luton look like they're going down. They really, I think, deserved more. And, it's a shame they didn't pick enough of points. I say that they had awful injury issues towards the back end of the season as well. Sambi Lokonga scored as well. It's worth pointing out for Luton in that game against West Ham. He'll return to Arsenal in the summer, of course, and then something will be done about his future. And Spurs coming from behind to beat Burnley, who were relegated. But my goodness me, this might be one of the saddest things I've ever seen. One of the saddest things, as an Arsenal fan, of course, I have ever seen. Now, you'll all know that Tottenham play their final home game against Manchester City in midweek. Now, what teams usually do is they have a lap of honour, a lap of appreciation in their final home game of the season as a thank you to the supporters for their efforts over the course of the campaign. Did they do that for the Man City game? No. They did their thank you for your incredible support tweet after the Burnley game, which I think tells you everything that you need to know about Tottenham Hotspur. My goodness gracious me. This is one of the Spursiest things I have ever seen. Because, of course, as we know, they have their match against Man City. I'm not expecting them to do anything against them. I think their supporters are going to turn out probably in light blue. I would not be surprised if you see City shirts, light blue shirts in the home end, because that is, as a Tottenham Hotspur fan, all you have to look forward to is supporting another side beat you. Now, people turn around to me to say, but Tom, wouldn't you be thinking the same if it was the other way around? Do you know the thing is, I'm never, ever going to have to worry about that. You know why? Because I support Arsenal. And we are never, ever going to have to deal with this scenario. But Tottenham, so the title is something that is incredibly difficult and incredibly unlikely for us to win. And we are, I've always said from the start, Man City were my favourites throughout the whole course of the season. Seeing this is nowhere near as good a feeling as a title win. But my goodness me, a close second is seeing the falling on your own sword in quite such an embarrassing fashion as Tottenham are here. This though, after the game against Burnley, is stunningly embarrassing. Really, really, really poor. Anyway, moving forwards, Ramsdale and Nketiah, Nelson, Tavares, Lokonga, Smith Rowe and Tierney are said, according to the Mirror, to have been put up for sale by Arsenal. All 7 players will be, by the club, welcomed offers for, and Arsenal will be expecting to try and make money on all of these players in the summer. I think there's potentially others that could also move on in the summer as well. It's worth keeping an eye on the likes of Alexander Zinchenko. It's worth keeping an eye on Thomas Partey. It's worth keeping an eye potentially on Fabio Vieira, who knows? But I think there are others as well whose futures are uncertain at this stage. Gabriel Jesus is another one as well. So keep an eye on those. But these 7 look like they are the most likely situations as well to be exits this summer. So let's wait and see what happens. But ultimately, today is all about Arsenal against Manchester United. You've got to get the job done. If we can take the title race to the final game of the season, that is going to do me nicely for what a campaign it would have been to round off. Knowing that we took the title to the last game of the season, is something that I never expected, really. When Arteta took over, if you'd have said to me, 2 successive title races with the potential to look like we're going to be winning the big things in a very, very near future, and to go up against this Manchester City side who are just so inevitable, pick up 46 of 51, and it will be 49 from 54 points should we win today. Just please take it to the last day. It would be really disappointing to go out with more of a whimper today. And Manchester United as well, the narrative of that, how the 2 clubs are juxtaposed against one another, and how, of course, Ten Hag has been speaking monotonously and meticulously and so repetitively about Arsenal throughout the course of the season. To really stick it to them would be very nice indeed. So please, Arsenal, just bring it home for the final day. And yes, if you would like to get more info on my thoughts and that of our fantastic members, who I was joined by Chris and Damien and Paul on Friday to talk about this game, you can by going back and watching our preview show as well. Right, let's go to part 2 and your questions and thoughts and questions and queries right after this. Okay, let's go to the chat box. Let's go to Simangaliso. Says they'll rather make sure Arsenal don't win the league than get into Europe. Losers, absolutely. Charlie says don't agree with Smith Rowe and Rambo being on that list for starters. Probably not true. I'll change your words there, Charlie. If John Cross is exceptionally well connected, Charlie. So I wouldn't particularly doubt his connections on this, but I think all 7 of those are certainly uncertain. I think all 7 of those are players that could leave the club this summer, and the club would be open certainly to receiving offers for. Luke Shaw in the chat, a resident Man United fan, says the title-winning celebration article from Kaya was not called for. Why do Arsenal folks set themselves up for bantering? Is it a tension thing? Which article, Luke? Let me know. Which specific? I don't know of a title-winning celebration. If you're talking about the parade, that's just a very normal journalistic line because the club have to put out that information because of logistics and because of police planning and strategies and stuff like that. That's nothing to do with like throwing shade or being a little bit hubristic or arrogant. The parade article is just a newsline. It explains to you how the parade would go about because that's the plan. The information is provided by, of course, the club. And then it's reported. So I don't think I think saying it's uncalled for is like turning around to a news station and saying, oh, it's uncalled for you reporting that news story, but it's news. So bit of a strange comment. It's a news story. it's information that's provided and then reported out. Marin says, who from the championship playoffs teams do you find the best away game? Championship playoffs, of course. I am going to be a very honest backing Southampton in these playoffs. Reason for this is because a good friend of mine at NBC, Joe Prince Wright, who of course has been on the channel, of course, is a massive Southampton fan. I've got no allegiance to Leeds or Norwich or West Brom or Southampton, any of them. So the only real team that I've got any links to with a good friend of mine, Joe at NBC, is Southampton. So I'm hoping that Southampton return to the Premier League. I know we don't have as a club the best of records on the South Coast, but it's a really nice ground to go to. It's a nice city to go to down on the South Coast. It's an easy away trip as well if you're ever traveling that way. So I for one, hope that Southampton can make it through. It's a really good couple of games, though. Norwich against Leeds and West Brom against Southampton. So it's interesting. It's not like got the edge of previous years where we've seen Brentford and we've seen Luton, of course. Was it Luton? I feel like it was Luton involved in the. Yes, it was. It was definitely Luton, wasn't it? Involved in the playoff finals. It's not had those edges because we've seen these four teams regularly involved in Premier League action before. So there's not necessarily a narrative or an underdog story, but I think it's all two matchups are really interesting and should be some competitive games as well. Luke, just following up on that parade story, says I just felt that the particular bit of news has gotten Arsenal to be bantered everywhere since, same as they did when they said Arsenal had gold trimmings on this season's shirt. This season's shirt is about celebrating 20 years of the Invincibles, Luke. I think you're really missing here. You might want to hold your hands up in a second because the parade article is just a news story. It's nothing to do with arrogance or anything like that. It's just a news story because it's just information that's put out, that's given to us, of course, by the club. It gives us that information to put out there. Nothing wrong with that at all. You'd see it if it was any club. Any club in that position would be given that information about a potential parade, would be putting out that information. And secondly, the gold trimmings on the shirt is a really weird critique because it's 20 years of the Invincibles this season. So that's why the gold trim is on that. It's just a celebration. It's really strange that those couple of bad takes there from you, Luke, I'm afraid. I'm a real Gooner says Spurs honours list wants to add that we stopped Arsenal winning the league. I mean, they might get a little plaque to go in the very dusty and cobweb strewn trophy room that's there. A little plaque that says we stopped Arsenal winning the league. TJR says, my only issue with any of these teams is if we hear about Ed Sheeran being an Ipswich fan, instant sports hate is warranted for that. Very harsh on Ed. Very harsh, TJR on Ed. Anza says, don't you think Tottenham did that because it was planned to be that way? Don't forget the City home game has been rearranged. It's not like a logistics thing where it's really difficult to change their answer. So I don't think so. You could easily flip this. It was organised a long time ago that the Spurs game would be rearranged with City to midweek. So no, I don't think so. It'd be interesting to see if they do another one after the full time against City as well. Bailey says, what's your favourite goal you've seen at the Emirates? My favourite goal that I've been there. I mean, Nelson last season against Bournemouth was probably the most crazy I've ever gone. And I was working. So I'd probably go for Nelson's goal. Other than that, outside of that, Trossard's goal against Liverpool this season was also another big one. Gabriel Martinelli's goal against City was huge. I mean, it wasn't a goal, but Raya's save against Porto was something quite special as well. So there's a few. I'm trying to go back further now. Bentner's goal against Cardiff always sticks out for me. It's just the irony of it, the funniness of it. So that's one that stands out as well. He came off the bench, barely ever played, scores a late goal against Cardiff. It was kind of funny, that goal as well. Let's go to Clive in the chat box. Spurs, to be fair, can't have kids involved on a night game, so I sort of understand as well. Okay, fair enough, Clive. Look, I get it. I'm just playing the Arsenal fan role here, mate, to be fair. It is what it is. I just find it so funny. I'm not going to try and make any sense of it. I'm not going to give them that at all. I'm not going to try and make any sense of it whatsoever. Just lean into the fan culture of it, I reckon. Ben says, Leeds are bigger than some of the dross that's come up recently. Do we really want Norwich rocking up again and doing nothing? I mean, it's a free 6 points. So maybe. Hashtag Danny says, as I was watching the City game, I realised how much we missed Timber. When City attackers can't score, guess what? Gvardiol turns up, and that could have been Timber for Arsenal. Fate had other plans. Missing Timber this season has been a big miss. A huge miss for us. Ronald says, if we were to sell Jesus and Zinchenko, what price do you think you'd want for them? I think you've got to try and make profit on both. You want upwards of £40 million for Jesus. You might struggle to make a bit of profit on him, I guess, but upwards of 40 million for Jesus. Zinchenko upwards of 30, I think, is probably what I would expect for those players. So a combined 70 million plus for for those two, I think, would be fair. Alfie says, I've really enjoyed the last few weeks. Feels like we are also so relaxed and just enjoying the football. If we win, if not, it is what it is. And I think that's really important, Alfie. And again, I know that for some, if we don't win the league, it's going to hit them very hard. And always, as I say in these moments, please do seek out the help that you may require if you need to. The mental health of football related to it is something that's not talked about enough. Do go watch the video on the Wolves official page as well if you haven't done so already. I've enjoyed this season massively. And it may not end in silverware, but it's ended with such hope and optimism about Arsenal and where we're going and what we're trying to achieve. It really is a great time. And you look at the other teams. Look at the other teams that you could be fans of. Imagine being a Chelsea fan and seeing how much they've spent to potentially get a UEFA Conference League place after 2 seasons of huge spending. And that's going to come back to bite them, trust me. Imagine being a Spurs fan, that you're having to wish and long for your own team to lose just because your toughest, most annoying rivals in the world could win the league. Imagine being a Manchester United fan who could have their worst Premier League finish in a generation, in history. Imagine being any supporter of those sides, you know. And yes, I mean, to be fair, Man United could still win the FA Cup, I suppose. I don't expect them to, but they could. But just imagine it, being a supporter of any of those other. Sorry, Luke, by the way. I know you're a Man United fan in our chat box. But imagine being a supporter of anyone else. You know, it must be great being a City fan. I'm sure it's wonderful. I mean, it's incredibly boring, but and incredibly hollow. But it's great being an Arsenal fan right now. It's so enjoyable watching my team play. It's so great and to laud and watch them. And the knowledge that I'm so confident that this team will deliver in the coming seasons fills me again with just more optimism. And I really look forward to the coming years. I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be special, and I can't wait. Izu says, Tom, how much would you sell Lokonga for? I think we've got to try and make as much back as we can that we spent on him. We signed him for about 15 to 18 million pounds. We need to try and make as much back of that back, upwards of 10 million for sure. Hoping more than maybe 15 million pounds for Lokonga. You'd hope. He's had a decent season for Luton, but are the offers going to be there? That's always the question. So I'd hope to try and make back as much of that money that we spent on him, but he's not progressed since we bought him, really. So it's going to be very difficult. I had someone leave a comment on my video. One of the classic comments that you get, the hashtag Tavares 40 million comments. Remember when those comments came around that we should be trying to get 40 million for Tavares? There's always, every single year, I always get criticised for my view about the selling valuations I have for players. I always have criticism towards me because I value players at what I think is what they would go for. I try and speak as objectively on this topic as I can. It's not, and some people think that what I say has some kind of influence, like on what actually the players are going to go for. It doesn't, by the way. So don't get it twisted. Nothing I say or write about in an article is going to have any impact on what Arsenal sell a player for. It just isn't. So don't fool yourself in that way. But it is incredibly strange, I think, when people say to me, like, no, we should be getting 60 million for Ramsdale. I can't ever foresee a world where any club is going to be paying that amount of money. The only time that would ever happen is if Ramsdale was still our starting goalkeeper this season, and if you had multiple teams battling away to try and sign Ramsdale, who had a situation where he wasn't, already keen to move on, and there wasn't a willingness on his side to move on. So I find that odd. I think if we can get upwards of 30 million pounds for Ramsdale, that'd be great. If we can get upwards of 30 million pounds to 40 million pounds for Smith Rowe, that'd be great. If we can get upwards of 25 to 30 million pounds for Nketiah, that'd be great. Last summer, I always use the example. I said Balogun, I thought, would go between 30 and 40 million pounds. What did he go for? Between 30 and 40 million pounds. I usually get these things relatively good. Not to blow my own trumpet too hard, but on selling, on valuations, it's never that too far away. Luke says, Tom, they're bullying me in the chat box. This is football harassment. To be fair, Luke, if I just scroll up in my chat box a little bit to this morning and the first comments you left, this is your comments that you joined us with. Today we smash you lot. 8-0 clean sheet. Season over for Arsenal. Glory, glory, Man United. Sing it with me. and now you're moaning that people are picking on you. You can't. You just can't, mate. It doesn't work that way. I love having rival fans in the chat, especially when they're very humble about it. I welcome it. But you can't blame the chat box for going for you if that's how you've entered the chat box this morning. Look, I'm sorry, mate, but it just doesn't work that way. Marion says you cannot compare Arsenal to other European clubs that get big money for players because Arsenal is not a selling club. And it's a really important point. Like we talk about how other teams have sold players for, and also like we talk about sometimes how Chelsea and Liverpool have sold younger players for a lot of money at times, and they have. They absolutely have. You know, they have sold these players like Solanke for a lot of money. They sold, who now turns out certainly to have been, it seems, worth it. Jordan Ibe, I got a lot of money for him. Rhian Brewster. And people talk about these as, you know, as certainly times where, but I mean, Balogun is a great example for us. 30 to 35 million pounds. He's not gone on and kicked on for Monaco at all. It looks like we got a very good deal there for Balogun in terms of that sale. Alex Iwobi got us 35 to 40 million pounds. Oxlade-Chamberlain, 35 to 40 million pounds. Emi Martinez, yes, now looks like we undersold him, but at the time he played something like 12 games and we got 20 million quid for the guy. You know, Xhaka, I know he's been fantastic for Leverkusen, but he had 1 year left on his deal and he went to Leverkusen for 22 million quid, around that figure. So we are much better at selling than what people give us credit for, and we are starting to improve this reputation that we've got. Willock is a great example. Exactly, yeah. 25 million pounds we got for Joe Willock, and he's contributed to Newcastle, but he's not been a fulcrum part of that side. So, you know, we are improving at selling, but some people absolutely overinflate valuations of our players, madly overinflate the valuations of our players, and says this sounds stupid because we're a fraction behind one of the best teams to ever play in the game. But what do you see is needing to bridge that gap? There you go, an easy question. It's not too difficult of a question, to be fair. It is depth. Like we still do need more depth in this squad. We still need to be able to rotate. What I saw against Villa and what I saw against Bayern in the second leg was a tired side. Now we managed to rally and find something of a second wind after those defeats, and we've looked much better, and the weeks off that we've had have bin better, but we still need better depth. We lost Jurrien Timber, of course, which has been massive. We lost Partey for such a huge majority of this season, which has also been massive. But to bridge that gap, we need more depth. We need more depth in the squads. We need to be able to manage games better. If you're looking at individual critiques of the manager, the in-game management for me, there is still games where I point to, and the Villa game at home in particular, the second half, the substitutions for me were all wrong in the second half. We should have brought players off far earlier than we did. Zinchenko should have been off at half time in that game. You know, because we knew that Villa were going to rally. It was always going to be that case. We dominated the first half of the majority of it. They were always going to come through. And Emery's very tactically astute at changing in game. So we didn't change. We didn't adapt. We didn't do enough. And we could have brought a Kivior on for Zinchenko in the second half. We could have changed things in other positions as well. But we didn't, you know. And there are still things that that Arteta can do better. He's a brilliant, brilliant coach, one of the best in the world. But it doesn't mean that he can't still get better. So there's a couple of things. Depth and some in-game management improvements. And I think that gap that we've got, like Pep Guardiola is probably the best in the world at changing games. If things aren't going Man City's way, the tactical changes he can make in a game. I think about the game last season at the Emirates when we lost to Man City. The tactical changes that Guardiola made when he moved Bernardo Silva into other areas of the field, and we couldn't deal with it. We couldn't deal with those changes, and they won that game in the end very comfortably. They won the home game against us very comfortably as well last season. But you look at the difference in the games that we play. You look at how we managed the game away from home at City this year, come away with a clean sheet, ending that 57-game goal-scoring run that City had. That shows the Arteta growth. That shows the improvement in his management and his in-game tactics as well, and how he's so much more shrewd at playing certain sides. We've not lost to a Big Six team, with today being the final time that we can complete that record of not losing to an entire Big Six team. Do you remember back in the day in the 2010s when our record away from home against Big Six teams was deplorable, absolutely deplorable? We could not get results away from home. The irony is that we've only won so far one. We've drawn at Chelsea, we've drawn at City, we've drawn at Liverpool. Maybe we'll look at those. Maybe that's an area as well where you can say, how can you bridge that gap? You win those games. You win at Liverpool. You win at Chelsea, which we have done in previous years, to be fair. You win at City. Again, another big thing is we need to try and do what they did to us last season, which is do the double. Turns out you can beat them and draw, and it's still not enough because there are obviously other games. And games like Fulham this season, which people will point to as a really disappointing result, they happen. Games like Fulham happen. You can't ever account for freak results. Like Man City lost at Wolves this season, it happens. You have bad games. So it's not necessarily, people say, oh, we lost against the sides that we shouldn't have lost to. I think it's actually more about we dropped points in games where we shouldn't have done, or we weren't tactically astute enough. The Fulham game is not one of those examples. The Fulham game was just terrible. We just turned up and were awful that day. And sometimes they happen. Those games go down. But and sometimes you get misfortune, like we did away from home against Aston Villa. But some of the games, like Aston Villa at home, we can look at ourselves. Not only did we not tactically change things in the second half, we didn't take our chance in the first. Trossard's moment, that might be where the season is on that precipice. That Trossard chance in the first half might be where we look back and go, my goodness me, what could have happened? Just like last season when we thought about that moment where at Anfield, Martinelli and Saka are running through and we can't play that pass to win that game. And who knows, maybe that would have been the moment last season where things would have been very different for us. So yeah, let's wait and see. But thank you for the question. It started, I thought, a really good talking point. That Fuad says one thing that needs to be mentioned is the amount of time City have a fully fit squad by the end of the season every year. This is the first time, Timber aside, we've had a fit squad. I mean, Partey as well. It's not the first time we've had a fit squad. I mean, at the end of the season, you could say yes, but across the season, no. But if your point is that at the end of the season, then for sure. And Timber's now going to be back, we hope, today. Hopefully he's going to be in the squad. Fingers crossed. Would quite like to see Timber involved today. But there you go. Magambo says, is this due to us peaking early? Meanwhile, City peaks after Jan. I don't think we peaked early this season at all. Last season, we definitely peaked early. This season, we've not peaked early at all. Arsenal have peaked actually in the period of the season where they needed to peak, which is at the end. Unfortunately, City haven't dropped any points either. The middle part of that kind of festive period where we lost to Villa, lost to West Ham, lost to Fulham, that's where the season was lost for us. Those 3 games is where this season has been lost. But it's such fine margins. It could be 2 points in the end. So it's such fine margins at the top, and we've managed to go throughout the course of the second half of the season, picking up 46 of an available 51 points. We could end the season picking up a 52 of an available 57, which is a stunning amount, a stunning number of points to pick up. And yeah, so we peaked early in the start of last season, but we certainly haven't peaked early this season. Not at all. Absolutely not. And the results certainly show that. Ajmal says, Nketiah at Chelsea would be selling north of £40 million. Maybe that's what fans are criticising regarding the selling. Would he? Would he be getting that? Why would, if he was being sold from Chelsea, playing the same number of minutes, be getting exactly that amount of price? Because I'm not sure that he would, I'm not sure they would sell him for that amount of money. I really don't. So interesting to see how much they sell Breuer for this summer. Keep an eye on Armando Breuer, because that's a great example. I don't think there's too much difference in quality between Breuer and Nketiah. So it'll be interesting to see how much Armando Breuer leaves for this summer, because I expect him to leave. And I don't think it'll be anywhere close to 40 million. If I'm wrong, I'll hold my hands up, sure. But unless someone silly comes in to try and sign Armando Breuer for 40 million quid, I just don't see that happening at all. Old Holdini here says Breuer is. They said 60 million. They won't get that. The reason why he went on loan to Fulham this season is because they couldn't sell him last summer. No one came in for him, So the example of Breuer doesn't even work, because last summer when he was on a longer contract, he's now on a shorter contract, I think, unless he renewed for an extra year. But unless that's the case, they will not be getting, not a chance. They will not be getting that amount for Breuer whatsoever. So, but keep an eye on that. It's certainly one to think about. I'm just looking at Chelsea's sales now. Now, they've sold players well like Havertz and Mount, but these are players that played regularly and often for them last season. Pulisic went for 17 million quid to AC Milan, and he's had a fantastic season, and he's only 25. So if you want to talk about Chelsea selling well, Christian Pulisic, that's not a good sale at all. Just under 20 million quid. It's around 15 million quid, 15 to 18 million pounds for Pulisic, who this season, looking for Milan, he's got 12 goals, 7 assists in 34 league games, and he went for just over 15 million quid. So I don't really necessarily see that as a great sale. Eduard Mendy went to Saudi Arabia after a couple of seasons on a loss. Lukaku, they're going to make a huge loss on him. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, they let go to AC Milan for around 50 million. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, right, I think is a fantastic example. England international, I think he's played for England. Certainly at youth level, homegrown. Let me have a quick look. Yes, he's played 10 times for England, Loftus-Cheek. He is 28 years of age, so he's in his prime, 27 at the start of the season, prime years. And you're looking at moving for 15 to 18 million quid to Milan. So this, I think it's a bit of a ruse, this whole, if it was Chelsea selling Nketiah, well, they get loads of money, because that's not true. Callum Hudson-Odoi, how much have they sold Callum Hudson? How much do they sell Callum Hudson-Odoi? I think that's another really good example. A player that was previously being linked to Bayern Munich. Let's check how much did they sell him for exactly. £5 million. £5 million. Hudson-Odoi left. So don't tell me that Eddie Nketiah should be fetching Arsenal £40 million. And if Chelsea was selling Nketiah, they'd be getting 40 million quid for him. When Callum Hudson-Odoi went for 5, I'm sorry, it doesn't weigh up, does it? It doesn't compute. It doesn't work. So, yeah, I think the argument that Arsenal aren't a good selling side, or I think it's a worth argument saying Arsenal should be better sellers. I'm with you. I'm with you there. We should sell better. But to say that, to try and point to clubs like Chelsea as these bastions of an example for selling, I think is a little bit far. Shall we have a quick look at Liverpool? Liverpool, all transfers. Let's have a look at how, because obviously they as well are a club that are lauded for the deals for Ibe and Brewster and Solanke. So this summer, they sold Naby Keita left for free. James Milner left for free. Roberto Firmino left for free. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain left for free. The main sale that they got was Fabinho, who's, to be fair, one of their key players and one helped them win the Premier League and the Champions League, went for around £40 million to Saudi Arabia. So there's a little bit of an asterisk next to that one, if you like. Last summer, did get a good sale, to be fair, on Nico Williams. Again, still only 15 to 18 million pounds. So not a massive deal. Marco Grujic went to Porto for 7 million quid. Takumi Minamino left for 10 million, 12 million quid. Again, not particularly great. Harry Wilson, season before, left for 10 million to Fulham. Taiwo Awoniyi went to Union Berlin for 6 million. I'm having to go back quite far to get a really good sale. Danny Ings for £20 million to Southampton. That's a good example, actually. Danny Ings, right? That was 2019 he left. So that was 5 years ago. Danny Ings was 26 years of age when he left Liverpool, and he signed for Southampton for £20 million, right? He signed from Burnley for, I think it was not a lot. I think it was like 6 million quid or something like that. It was. So Danny Ings, they make a profit on him, but he signs for Southampton for £20 million, despite the fact he was 26 years of age, arguably in the prime years of his career moving forwards. Yes, he'd had injury issues, which, to be fair, a lot of our players that people say we should get more money for are also going to be having that little asterisk next to them as well. Again, I think that people are maybe overrating Chelsea and Liverpool in sales. I really do. I don't think there's too many good examples at all that you can point to and say, well, look what they do. They always sell well. I think it's a bit of a miss, actually. It's a bit of a myth. So I hope I'm glad we touched upon that today, because it's quite a good insight. Somebody says, anyone noticed that we keep getting better and better? We still have several areas we can improve as well. The future is blinding. Absolutely agree with you. Amaru Gooner says, let's be honest, if we bought Nketiah for 40 million, our fans would go mad. It's also a really fantastic point. They're saying like, oh, we should sell Nketiah for 40 million quid. Oh, so you'd sign Nketiah for 40 million quid, would you? Is that what you'd do? Because I certainly wouldn't. With respect to Eddie, I think we'll be lucky to get £30 million for him. So I think he'll score a lot of goals for a team in the bottom to mid part of the Premier League table. I think if he was to sign for Brentford and replace Tony, as I've said before, I think he'd get 10 plus goals for them next season. But yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's the irony. Would you spend 40 million on Eddie Nketiah? That's kind of the question. So no. Would you spend 25 to 30 if you were a club in that area of the table? Maybe. Yeah, I might spend that. So there you go. So Nicola says, when you're selling hotels as players for 25 million a pop, you can afford flubs like Pulisic and Loftus-Cheek. Oh dear. John says, Tom, it's my daughter's 21st birthday today. Could you give a massive happy birthday to Ellie? Ellie, congratulations on reaching 21st birthday and enjoy it. If you went to uni, I hope it was fantastic. 21 years of age, leaving that and about to embark upon the big wide world of work. It's really fun. It's really fun. Chase your dreams. Maximir says, Tom, do you think this spurt in Man United injuries has anything to do with Dr. Gary O'Driscoll moving there? People keep pointing fingers at him, though I think it's more Eric Ten Hag's training regime. No, I don't think it's anything to do with Gary O'Driscoll going there. Honestly, it's one of the silliest things. The conspiracy theories that exist about injury records and the doctors that are there. Gary O'Driscoll is one of the most highly regarded people in his field. And we're trying to suggest that one of the most highly regarded people in their field is directly responsible for an increase of injuries that he has nothing to do with. I'm sorry, but no. It's complete coincidence that Gary O'Driscoll has moved to Man United. Man United have had injury issues for years and years and years. So the suggestion that this is a problem and it's caused by Arsenal's former doctor is mad. No, Gary O'Driscoll is a very competent, very good at what he does. And as I say, one of the most highly regarded people in his field. It's absolutely nothing to do with him. So, yeah, look elsewhere for your reasoning. Nuances says, we bought Havertz for 65 million. No one would have said anything, but we trust. We've done very well to get that deal. Havertz has been a key part of Arsenal progressing, moving forwards and being better this season than last season. Ezra says, Tom, would you pay more for Eddie or Balogun? Last summer, I would have paid more for Balogun. Last summer, I think he would have gotten a higher fee. This summer, without question, if Monaco were to sell Balogun this summer, you're lucky to get 20 million for the guy. So Arsenal have done very, very well there to get what we did. And so I think Eddie Nketiah would certainly be, a key player. Somebody says, I disagree with Nketiah's quality. Yes, he can score goals, but he's proven that he can't affect the game unless delivered to on a plate. He'd need to play for Man City to make an impact. Not true. There are loads of strikers out there that are like a traditional number 9 that feed off service, So, yes, he doesn't necessarily have the Havertz abilities of this world, but let's just wait and see what he does. Let's see where he goes, and if he starts regular games, how many goals he scores. So let's wait and see. Wes says, morning, Tom, and all you gorgeous Gooners watching on catch up from the start. Come on, you Gooners. Stephen says, Tom, what do you think about Arsenal Man United friendly match? Will be like if we win today's match. Are you coming to Los Angeles? I'm sadly not. No, I'm gutted. I'm not going to be there this summer. It still remains a bucket list thing to attend a tour, but only one of our writers is going to be out there. So sadly, I'll be covering it all from home at silly o'clock in the morning. But sadly, I won't be there. What will the friendly be like? I don't think it's going to be affected by this game, to be fair, whatsoever. Tanner's in the chat. Bearded Gooner says, no question here, Tom. Just saying good morning as I'm awake on the East Coast in the US. And thanks for being in the chat on Dan Show on Friday. A little squeaky bum time right now. It is a little bit, but I don't think there's much pressure. I honestly don't think there's huge amounts of pressure on Arsenal today. It might seem a bit backwards to say that. I don't think there is. Because there's such an expectation that City are going to go on and win it. If City had dropped points yesterday, the pressure would be immense on Arsenal. It would be absolutely immense. But I actually have this weird, relaxed feeling going into today's game. Call me crazy, but I really, really do have such a relaxed feel about today's game. So, yeah, Stephen says, you've got to come, Tom. We'll do a fundraiser and bring you to LA. Look, it's very kind of you indeed, but I wouldn't expect you to do that at all. Ray says, if offered, would you absolve City's alleged 115 charges in exchange for a final head-to-head game between us to decide the league? That's a really strange question, Ray. Probably not, no, because I want to see the outcome of this investigation, and I want the right outcome to come to fruition. So, plus when you absolve someone of something, you're effectively saying that they were guilty. Is that how it works? I'm not sure. If you're absolved of it, it's a strange word. Absolve. It means to declare someone free of guilt. I guess it's the complete opposite of that. So it was the exact right word to use. Fair play. I think that, I don't think so because, as I say, I want justice to take its course and I want the right result to come. I'm hoping that the right result will indeed arrive. And if indeed they are found guilty or found innocent, or in either way, I hope that it's because that's the right outcome. Either way it goes, I just want the right outcome. So I just want the game's integrity to remain as integral as it can be anyway, which is a bit of a tough one. Anyway, we're going to end the show there. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Appreciate your time, as always. Have a fantastic Sunday. I've got a barbecue later on, which is quite nice. Looking forward to that. But I will be covering the game from home. And so if you are indeed unable to watch the game for whatever reason, but you want to stay up to date with things, please make sure you tune into the Football.London live blog, which will be going from 12:30 p.m. UK time. So keep your eyes peeled to that. Kickoff is at 4:30 this afternoon. I'll be, of course, live with you tomorrow morning for an update and reaction to today's game as well. Please do help us on our way to 1,000 likes on the video. Should I do a quick check on yesterday's? Yeah, of course, it's hit 1,000 likes. Thank you very much. And of course, today's, you still need to push ahead because we don't want to be left in the mire again. Need to keep our challenge going as much as Arsenal are keeping their title challenge going. So thank you for all those that have tuned in, all 1,000+ of you that are listening on YouTube and on Twitter as well. So thank you to you. I will see you very soon. Have a fantastic day. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.